Listen, I have seen a lot of things in my 70 cycles serving the Galactic Council. I have witnessed the Kraxon warlords bend steel with their minds. I have watched the ethereal singers of Proxima dissolve asteroids with nothing but their voices. I have even seen a Volthraxian eat an entire fusion reactor just because someone said they could not do it. But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, prepared me for the day humanity entered the arena. My name is Torvik Zanesh, and I am what you would call a bookmaker for the Council's exhibition matches. Basically, I take bets on which species will humiliate themselves the least when they try to prove they belong among the galactic elite. It is a good job, pays well, and the entertainment value is off the charts. The exhibition matches happen once every solar cycle. New species who think they are tough enough to earn a seat at the big table get to face the Council's chosen champions in combat trials. Most of them last about 3 minutes before they are either unconscious, crying, or both. Humans had been making noise for the past few months, ever since their little blue planet got its first hyperspace communicator. They wanted in. They wanted respect. They wanted a council seat. We laughed. Of course we laughed. Humans were small, fragile, had no natural weapons, no armored hide, no venom, no telepathic abilities. They could not even see in multiple spectrums. Their military records showed they fought each other more than anyone else, which is generally not a sign of a unified, advanced civilization. The Council approved their request for an exhibition match, mostly as a joke, something to break up the monotony between the serious applicants. I remember the day their representative arrived at the proving grounds on Station Kelvaris. The entire booking hall erupted in laughter when she walked through the gates. Her name was Dakota Mills. She stood maybe 5.5 feet tall, had brown skin, dark hair, pulled back in what humans call a ponytail, and she wore the strangest combat suit I had ever seen. It was not powered armor. It was not energy shielded. It looked like reinforced fabric with some metal plates bolted on. Primitive did not even begin to cover it. But it was not Dakota that made everyone lose their minds. It was the creature walking beside her. "What in the 17 hells is that supposed to be?" asked Grelnak the Crusher, a 10-foot-tall reptilian champion who had won 43 consecutive matches. The creature was small, maybe 3 feet long, with a stocky body covered in gray and white fur. It had a flat head, small ears, and beady black eyes that somehow managed to look both bored and mildly irritated at the same time. It waddled when it walked, had claws that looked sharp, but nothing special, and honestly appeared like something you would step over on your way to fight something actually dangerous. Dakota smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile that should have warned us. "This," she said, her voice carrying across the booking hall with surprising confidence, "is Sergeant Pancake. He is a honey badger, and he is going to be my combat partner for today's trial." The laughter doubled. Grelnak actually had tears running down his scaled face. Even I had to admit, it was pretty funny. The humans had brought a pet, a silly-looking waddling pet named Sergeant Pancake. The odds I was getting were insane. 50-1 against the humans. Some people were betting 100-1. Free money, they said. Easiest bets of the cycle, they said. I should have known better. I have been doing this job long enough to recognize when the universe is setting up a punchline. The exhibition match format is simple. 3 trials: combat, strategy, and survival. Win 2 out of 3, and you earn your council consideration. Lose, and you go home with whatever dignity you have left, assuming you have any. Trial 1 was combat. Direct, simple, brutal. The arena was a circular platform, 200 meters in diameter, surrounded by energy shields to protect the audience. The surface was rough stone, designed to favor no particular species. Weapons were allowed, but most champions preferred to rely on their natural abilities. Dakota and Sergeant Pancake stood on one side. Grelnak stood on the other, cracking his knuckles, which sounded like boulders grinding together. The Arbiter, a floating orb of crystalline intelligence named Oversight 7, announced the rules in its monotone voice. Combatants will fight until one side surrenders, is incapacitated, or is eliminated. Lethal force is permitted. External assistance is forbidden. Do both sides understand the terms? Crystal clear, Dakota said, checking something on her wrist device. Grelnak just growled. He did not need words. His record spoke for itself. Grelnak charged immediately. When you weigh 800 pounds and have claws that can rip through starship hull plating, subtlety is optional. Dakota did not move. She just stood there, one hand resting casually on her hip. Sergeant Pancake, however, made a noise. It was somewhere between a growl and a sneeze, and a sound you might make if someone stole your lunch. Then he started walking toward Grelnak. Not running, walking, like he had all the time in the world. Grelnak thought it was hilarious. He actually slowed down, wanting to make a show of it. He raised one massive clawed hand, ready to swipe the little creature aside like a bug. That was his first mistake. The second mistake was assuming Sergeant Pancake cared about things like size, strength, or the laws of physics. What happened next took approximately 4 seconds, but I have watched the replay at least 200 times, and I still cannot fully process it. Sergeant Pancake did not dodge. He went low, running between Grelnak's legs, and as he passed underneath, he reached up and sank his claws into a very sensitive area that I will not describe in detail out of respect for Grelnak's family. Grelnak screamed. It was a high-pitched, awful sound that I did not think his species was capable of making. He spun around, clutching himself, and Sergeant Pancake was already climbing up his back. Not carefully. Not tactically. He was just scrambling up Grelnak like a furry, angry missile, claws digging in, teeth flashing. Grelnak tried to grab him, but honey badgers, as we were all about to learn, do not care about being grabbed. Sergeant Pancake bit Grelnak's hand hard enough to draw blood, then continued climbing until he reached the back of Grelnak's neck. Then he just hung there, biting, clawing, making that horrible, angry sneeze-growl sound. Grelnak spun in circles, roaring, trying to shake the creature off. He slammed his back against the arena wall. Sergeant Pancake held on. He rolled on the ground. Sergeant Pancake held on. He tried to reach back and pull the honey badger off, and Sergeant Pancake bit his fingers so hard, Grelnak howled. Dakota, meanwhile, had not moved. She was checking her nails. "Sergeant Pancake, heel!" she called out, like she was at a park. The honey badger immediately let go, dropped to the ground, and waddled back to Dakota's side. He sat down next to her, licking blood off his claws, looking vaguely disappointed that the fun was over. Grelnak collapsed to his knees, breathing hard, bleeding from at least 15 different wounds. "Do you yield?" Oversight 7 asked. Grelnak looked up at Dakota and Sergeant Pancake. The honey badger yawned. "I yield," Grelnak whispered. The arena went silent. Completely, utterly silent. Then the chaos started. People were screaming that the match was rigged. Others were demanding their money back. A few of the smarter gamblers were already placing new bets, rapidly adjusting their odds. I just sat there, staring at my datapad, watching my profit margins evaporate. "Ladies and gentlemen," the announcer's voice boomed across the station, "humans have won trial 1. Dakota gave a little wave to the audience. Sergeant Pancake yawned again. I knew right then that this was going to be a very long day. Trial 2 was strategy. This one was less about brute force and more about tactical thinking. The challenge involved navigating a maze filled with traps, puzzles, and automated defense systems. Most species brought their best military minds, individuals with enhanced cognitive abilities or hive mind connections. The humans brought Dakota and Sergeant Pancake. The maze was 3-dimensional, filled with laser grids, pressure plates, locked doors requiring complex mathematical solutions, and guardian drones programmed to stun anyone who made a wrong move. Standard procedure was to take it slow, analyze each room, carefully disable the traps. Dakota walked into the first room, looked around for approximately 5 seconds, then pointed at a wall panel. "Sergeant Pancake, that one." The honey badger walked over to the panel and started scratching at it. Not gently, just tearing into it with his claws like it had personally offended him. Sparks flew. The panel shorted out. The laser grid in the room deactivated. "Good boy," Dakota said, tossing him what looked like a piece of dried meat. They continued like this through the entire maze. Dakota would identify the control systems, Sergeant Pancake would destroy them with enthusiastic violence, and they would move forward. When they encountered a locked door requiring a 12-digit code, Dakota pulled out a small explosive charge, stuck it to the lock, and blew the door open. "That is against the spirit of the challenge," one of the judges protested over the intercom. "Is it against the rules?" Dakota asked. Silence. "Thought so," she said, stepping through the smoking doorway. When guardian drones appeared, Sergeant Pancake treated them like chew toys. He would leap onto them, bite through their sensor arrays, and ride them like some kind of demented carnival attraction until they crashed. They completed the maze in 14 minutes. The previous record was 2 hours and 37 minutes. Trial 2 goes to humanity, Oversight 7 announced, sounding slightly confused. The betting boards were going insane now. Odds were shifting by the second. Some people were betting their entire fortunes on the humans. Others were convinced this was some kind of elaborate trick. I was starting to sweat. Not because I was hot. Because I was watching something impossible happen in real time, and my brain was refusing to accept it. Trial 3 was survival. This was the big one. This was where champions either proved they had what it took, or they broke. The trial was simple in concept. Survive for 1 hour in the gauntlet, an artificial environment filled with the galaxy's most dangerous predators, environmental hazards, and random disaster events. Most teams tried to find shelter, hide, wait out the clock. Dakota and Sergeant Pancake walked into the gauntlet like they were going for a stroll. The first creature that attacked them was a Vexarian shrieker, a 12-foot-tall insectoid nightmare with acid spit and mandibles that could cut through armor plating. It leaped at Dakota from a tree. Sergeant Pancake met it in midair. I am not exaggerating when I say that Honey Badger grabbed that shrieker by one of its mandibles and rode it to the ground, biting and clawing the entire way down. The shrieker tried to shake him off, tried to spray acid, tried everything. Sergeant Pancake did not care. He never cared. That seemed to be his entire philosophy on life. Within 30 seconds, the shrieker was retreating, missing 2 legs and making a sound like a broken alarm. A thermic serpent, a creature made of living magma, emerged from a lava flow. Sergeant Pancake looked at it, looked at Dakota, and made a questioning sound. "Too hot. Buddy. Let me handle this one," Dakota said. She pulled out a canister from her belt and sprayed some kind of foam at the serpent. The creature hissed, its body temperature dropping rapidly, and it slithered away. "Compressed coolant," Dakota explained to the cameras. Humans are pretty good at solving problems. An entire pack of razor wings, flying predators with wingspans of 20 feet, descended from the artificial sky. This time, Dakota and Sergeant Pancake worked together. Dakota used some kind of sonic emitter that disrupted their flight patterns, sending them into confused spirals. Sergeant Pancake somehow climbed a tree and started leaping from branch to branch, snatching razor wings out of the air and slamming them into the ground. It was ridiculous. It was impossible. It was absolutely terrifying. By the 30-minute mark, the predators had stopped attacking. They had learned. They had adapted. They had learned to fear the small human and her even smaller, angrier companion. The environmental hazards kept coming. Poison gas, collapsing terrain, electrical storms. Dakota navigated them all with calm efficiency, and Sergeant Pancake seemed to treat each new disaster as a minor inconvenience at best. When the hour was up, they were sitting on a rock, sharing what looked like sandwiches. Sergeant Pancake had a smear of something that might have been jam on his face. Trial 3 complete, Oversight 7 announced. Humanity has won all 3 trials. This is unprecedented. The station erupted. Half the audience was cheering. The other half was in shock. The betting halls were in complete chaos. I had people screaming at me, demanding explanations, threatening lawsuits. I just watched as Dakota and Sergeant Pancake walked out of the gauntlet, completely unfazed, looking like they had just finished a light workout. The council chambers were packed when Dakota was brought before them for the formal recognition ceremony. Representatives from a slurred 1,000 worlds watched as she stood in the center of the hall, Sergeant Pancake sitting calmly beside her. The High Chancellor, a being of pure energy contained in a geometric shell, spoke with a voice that resonated through the entire station. Dakota Mills of Earth, you and your companion have completed the exhibition matches with a perfect record. This has never happened before in Council history. Before we proceed with your petition for Council membership, we must ask, what is a honey badger? And why did you bring it to combat trials clearly designed for sentient champions? Dakota smiled that same dangerous smile from before. With respect, Chancellor, Sergeant Pancake is not just a honey badger. He is the honey badger. And I brought him because where I come from, we have a saying, honey badger does not care. And I figured, if the galaxy wanted to judge humanity, they should meet one of the toughest creatures we have ever had the privilege of sharing a planet with. But it is so small, one of the council members said. So are humans, compared to most of you, Dakota replied. But we have never let that stop us. We have fought predators, survived ice ages, crossed oceans in wooden boats, and figured out how to leave our planet using controlled explosions. We do not win because we are the biggest or the strongest. We win because we are stubborn, creative, and we absolutely refuse to quit. And yes, sometimes we win because we bring a honey badger. Sergeant Pancake yawned again, clearly bored with the politics. The council deliberated for approximately 3 minutes. Humanity's petition is approved, the High Chancellor announced. Welcome to the Galactic Council. The station exploded with noise. Some species were celebrating. Others were protesting. Most were just confused. I sat in my booth, looking at the final betting numbers, and I realized something. I had just witnessed the galaxy underestimate humanity. It would not be the last time, but it was definitely the most entertaining. 3 months passed since Dakota Mills and Sergeant Pancake humiliated half the galaxy's champions in under 2 hours. 3 months since humanity earned their council seat. 3 months since my betting business took the biggest hit in its 70-cycle history. You would think things would settle down after that. You would be wrong. The council chambers had turned into a circus, and humans were the main attraction. Every session, representatives from different worlds would challenge Earth's legitimacy, demand rematches, or propose new trials to prove the exhibition match was a fluke. Dakota handled it all with the same calm efficiency she showed in the arena. Sergeant Pancake mostly slept through the meetings, occasionally waking up to scratch himself or make that weird angry sneeze sound when someone spoke too loudly. But the real trouble started when Ambassador Thrace of the Dravoxian Empire decided he had enough. Thrace was old money, old power, old blood. His species had held 3 council seats for the past 2,000 cycles. They were apex predators from a heavy-gravity world, standing 9 feet tall with natural exoskeletons that could deflect most small arms fire. They considered themselves the military elite of the galaxy, and they absolutely hated that humans had embarrassed Grelnak, who happened to be Thrace's nephew. I was in the betting hall when Thrace made his move. The place had been renovated since the exhibition match, mostly because angry losers had trashed half the equipment. Now, it was sleeker, more secure, and doing triple the business it used to. Turns out people love betting on humans once they realize the species is full of surprises. Thrace walked in flanked by 6 guards, each carrying plasma rifles that probably cost more than my entire operation. The hall went quiet. When an ambassador shows up at a gambling establishment, it is never good news. Torvik Zanesh, Thrace rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. I have a proposition. I set down my datapad carefully. Ambassador, I am just a bookmaker. If you have official business, the council chambers are 3 levels up. This is not official business, Thrace said, his mandibles clicking in what passed for a Dravoxian smile. This is personal. I want to arrange a special match. Humans versus my personal champion. Winner takes all. No rules, no restrictions. Real combat. The hall stayed silent, but I could feel the energy shift. Everyone was listening now. The council banned unsanctioned matches after the Kelvorian incident. I reminded him. You remember, the one where 12 people died, and someone's pet quantum slug ate half a station? I am aware, Thrace said, which is why this match will take place on neutral ground. Outside council jurisdiction. I have already secured a location. The Obsidian Ring, in the Vorton Wastes. I whistled low. The Obsidian Ring was an ancient arena, built by a civilization that had gone extinct, fighting each other. It floated in unclaimed space, technically legal for private matches, and had a reputation for being where serious grudges got settled. Thrace leaned down until his face was inches from mine. His breath smelled like sulfur and old meat. Then I will find someone else who will. But I came to you because you are the best. And because I am offering you 20% of the gate, this match will draw spectators from across the galaxy. The betting alone will make you rich beyond measure. He was right, and we both knew it. A revenge match between Dravoxian military elite and the upstart humans who humiliated them would be the biggest event in decades. What does Dakota say about this? I asked. She has not been asked yet, Thrace admitted. I wanted arrangements in place first, but she will accept. Humans have something they call pride. They will not back down from a challenge. I should have said no. I should have walked away right there. But 20% of the gate, plus betting commissions, would set me up for life. I will make some calls, I said. Thrace's mandibles clicked again. Excellent. I will handle the invitation personally. He left with his guards, and the hall immediately erupted in conversation. Everyone wanted in on this action. People were already proposing odds, planning travel arrangements, arguing about whether humans would show up at all. I pulled up my communication array and sent a discreet message to Dakota. We had developed a professional relationship after the exhibition match. She appreciated that I had been one of the few who did not laugh when she entered the arena, mostly because I was too busy calculating odds to waste time on mockery. Her reply came back in under a minute. Torvik, if this is about Thrace's challenge, I already know. He sent a formal invitation an hour ago. Sergeant Pancake ate it. I am pretty sure that counts as acceptance in some cultures. Send me the details. I felt a chill run down my spine. She was actually going to do it. The Obsidian Ring floated against a backdrop of dying stars, a massive circular structure carved from black stone that seemed to absorb light. Ships from across the galaxy surrounded it. Thousands of spectators willing to travel weeks just to see this match. I arrived 3 days early to set up the betting infrastructure. The arena itself was brutal in its simplicity. A flat circular platform, 500 meters across, with no barriers, no safety features, nothing but open space and a long drop into the void if you stepped off the edge. Thrace had spared no expense. He brought a full military escort, medical teams, weapons specialists, and his champion. Her name was Kyra Venox, and she was everything Grelnak was not. Where he relied on brute strength, she was a tactical fighter, trained in 17 different combat styles, enhanced with military 4022+ grade cybernetics, and carrying enough weaponry to level a small city. She stood 7 feet tall, her exoskeleton polished to a mirror shine, and her 4 arms each held a different weapon: plasma blade, shock whip, rail pistol, and some kind of energy projector I could not identify. When Dakota's ship landed 2 days later, half the spectators rushed to the observation decks to see what the humans had brought. Dakota walked down the ramp wearing the same combat suit from before, looking completely relaxed. Sergeant Pancake waddled beside her, stopping occasionally to sniff at interesting smells. Behind them came someone new. His name was Marcus Vale, and he was introduced as Dakota's backup. He was tall for a human, maybe 6 feet, with scars across his face and the kind of calm eyes that suggested he had seen terrible things and decided they were not particularly impressive. 2 humans against 1 Dravoxian? Someone in the crowd muttered. Hardly seems fair. For which side? Another voice asked. The betting was insane. Most people still favored Kyra, but the odds were much closer now, 45 to 55. A lot of people had learned their lesson from the exhibition match. I managed to get a private word with Dakota before the match began. You know, this is not like the trials, I told her. Kyra is a military operative. She has killed people. A lot of people. This is not going to be some controlled exhibition. Dakota nodded. I know. That is why I brought Marcus. And before you ask, Sergeant Pancake volunteered. Try telling him he cannot participate. I dare you. The honey badger was currently investigating a maintenance panel, trying to figure out if he could fit inside it. What is your plan? I asked. Dakota smiled. Humans are really good at 2 things, Torvik: adapting and refusing to die. Watch and learn. The match rules were simple, because Thrace wanted it that way. No time limit, no surrender option. Fight until one side could not continue. Lethal force encouraged. Medical teams stood by, but everyone knew they were mostly for show. If someone went over the edge of the platform, they were gone. Kyra entered the arena first, her weapons gleaming under the artificial lights. She moved through a series of warm-up exercises that looked more like a deadly dance, each movement precise and lethal. Dakota, Marcus, and Sergeant Pancake entered from the opposite side. Dakota cracked her knuckles. Marcus stretched his neck. Sergeant Pancake sat down and started grooming himself, completely unconcerned. Combatants, ready? The Arbiter called out. This one was not Oversight 7, but a hired neutral party, a floating sphere of sensors and weapon detectors. Ready? Kyra said, her voice amplified through her helmet speakers. Born ready, Dakota replied. Marcus just nodded. Kyra did not. Begin! Kyra moved first, activating her jump jets and launching herself across the arena at incredible speed. She brought her plasma blade down in an arc that would have bisected Dakota if it connected. It did not connect, because Marcus tackled Dakota sideways, rolling them both out of the strike zone. The blade hit the stone floor and carved a glowing line 3 inches deep. Kyra spun, her shock whip lashing out toward Marcus. He caught it, somehow, with his bare hand. I could see the electricity coursing through his arm, but he just gritted his teeth and pulled. Kyra was yanked forward, off balance. Dakota was already moving, sliding across the floor and kicking Kyra's legs out from under her. The Dravoxian hit the ground hard but rolled with it, coming up with her rail pistol aimed at Dakota's head. The shot rang out. Dakota was not there anymore. She had thrown herself flat. The rail round screamed past where her head had been and disappeared into space. Sergeant Pancake finally decided to join the fight. He had been circling around the grade, edge of the arena, apparently waiting for the right moment. He charged straight at Kyra, making that terrible angry sound. Kyra saw him coming and actually laughed. She brought her energy projector to bear, ready to vaporize the small creature. Sergeant Pancake went low again, sliding under the energy beam, and latched onto Kyra's ankle with his teeth. Dravoxian exoskeletons are designed to resist bullets, blades, and energy weapons. They are not designed to resist an animal that does not understand the concept of giving up. Sergeant Pancake bit down harder, his teeth finding the joints between armor plates, and twisted. Kyra screamed and tried to shake him off. He held on. She activated her jump jets again, launching 15 feet into the air. Sergeant Pancake held on. She spun in mid-air, firing her weapons randomly, trying to dislodge the creature. Sergeant Pancake held on. When she landed, he was still there, still biting, now making a sound like a broken garbage disposal. Dakota and Marcus used the distraction perfectly. Marcus pulled something from his belt, a small metal sphere, and threw it at Kyra's chest. It attached with a magnetic clamp. "Electromagnetic pulse, in 3 seconds," he said calmly. Kyra's eyes widened behind her helmet. She tried to reach the device, but Sergeant Pancake was still attached to her leg, and Dakota had grabbed her shock whip, using it to keep her off balance. The pulse detonated. Kyra's cybernetics shut down. Her weapons went dark. Her armor locked up. She toppled over like a statue, unable to move. Sergeant Pancake finally let go, wandering away to investigate a shiny piece of debris. Dakota stood over Kyra, looking down at the immobilized warrior. "You fought well," Dakota said, "but you made a mistake. You assumed we would fight like you. Humans do not do that. We fight like humans. Which means we cheat, we improvise, and we bring friends who do not care about your fancy armor." Kyra could not respond. Her communication systems were fried. The Arbiter's voice echoed across the arena. "Kyra Venox is unable to continue. Victory goes to humanity." The crowd went absolutely berserk. Ships were honking their horns. People were screaming. The betting boards crashed from the sheer volume of transactions. I sat in my booth, watching my accounts fill with credits, and I realized something profound. Humanity had not just won another match. They had sent a message. They were not going away. They were not backing down. And they were going to keep surprising everyone who underestimated them. Thrace left the Obsidian ring without speaking to anyone. His guards had to carry Kyra back to their ship. The medical teams said her cybernetics could be repaired, but her pride might take longer. Dakota found me in the betting hall later that evening, after most of the crowds had dispersed. 20%, as promised, I said, transferring her share of the gate receipts. "You are officially wealthy by most galactic standards." "Good," Dakota said. "Earth needs the credits. We have a lot of catching up to do. Can I ask you something?" "Quote," I said. "Why did you really accept this challenge? You knew it was dangerous. You knew Thrace wanted revenge. You could have declined." Dakota sat down across from me. Sergeant Pancake jumped into her lap and immediately fell asleep, snoring softly. Because if we had said no, the galaxy would have decided the exhibition match was luck. They would have spent the next century testing us, challenging us, trying to prove we did not belong. By accepting and winning, we established something. Humans do not back down. Humans do not break. And humans are going to be here for a long, long time. She stood up, carefully holding the sleeping honey badger. "Besides," she added with a grin, "Sergeant Pancake would never forgive me if I denied him the chance to bite another galactic champion. He has a reputation to maintain." I watched her leave, and I pulled up the latest council reports on my datapad. Humanity had been assigned 3 new ambassadors. They were opening trade negotiations with 6 different species. Earth scientists were already collaborating with galactic researchers on fusion technology, medical advances, and agricultural improvements. And there, buried in the administrative notes, was a request from the Human Defense Initiative to discuss integrating honey badgers into military training programs. The galaxy had spent 10,000 cycles thinking it understood power, strength, and survival. Then, humanity showed up with a waddling furball named Sergeant Pancake and rewrote the rules. I started booking odds for humanity's next challenge, whatever that might be. Something told me I was going to be very, very busy. Because the galaxy had learned an important lesson. Humans do not fight fair. They fight to win. And they always bring backup that does not care about your size, your strength, or your reputation. They bring creatures that simply do not care. And in a galaxy full of predators, warriors, and ancient powers, that might just be the most dangerous thing of all. The betting boards lit up with new speculation. What would humans do next? What other Earth creatures would they introduce? What other impossible victories would they pull off? I did not know the answers, but I knew one thing for certain. I was never, ever betting against humanity again. Somewhere in the distance, I could hear Sergeant Pancake's distinctive angry sneeze growl, followed by someone screaming. Probably another galactic champion learning a hard lesson. I smiled and got back to work. Business was good. Business was very, very good. And the galaxy would never be boring again.